God, give me the power to talk would be the ultimate gift they yearn for, always. More than 95% of the people have this gift, the power to talk. However, only a handful choose to use it to create change. The ones that create change touch the lives of people, contribute to the society, and make the world smile. Be it entrepreneurs, politicians, philanthropists, artists, musicians, sportsperson or influencers. They all have one thing in common. They communicate effectively their thoughts, ideas, and passion. They communicate efficiently to bring about change, not just for themselves, but for others as well. If they can be a change maker, so can you, and only you can. Be the change. Let's do it.
The secret of getting ahead is getting started. Good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to commence this webinar series which enables you to get started and go ahead to accomplish what you thrive. I am Vidyashri Murali and welcome to Unfiltered, a webinar that would take your English up a notch. In today's talk, we are going to discuss one of the most prominent topics in business English, golden rules to compose an email. Our speaker today is Mrs. Suju, head trainer at Inzpira. She holds a TESOL certification in teaching English as a second language and owns a certification in business English provided by the University of Washington. Above all, Inspira is a well-known organization in the sphere of language, IELTS, and personality development. It has tutored more than 15,000 students from different parts of India and elsewhere and currently trains nearly 1,500 students online. Being a trainer at Inspira, Mrs. Suju gained a lot of experience in the language training by facilitating more than 5,000 students and working professionals all over India and abroad. She's here with us today to share her wisdom to enlighten our knowledge. Let's get started and welcome Mrs. Suju without any further delay. So, good evening, Suju.
Thank you so much, Vidyashree. Even I will be so glad to give my opinion about this.
Great. So, etiquettes are most sought after in a professional sphere. Working professionals are being trained in the domain of business communication, which is regarded as a determining factor to their career success. What would you like to add about its importance?
Good question, Vidyashree. Actually, this is one particular confusion many of the people have today. So we should definitely discuss about the ways to work on this. So let me share something from my experience. Business communication is something pivotal in communication which happens in a professional environment. So many of the crowd has raised concerns that they are not able to perform well in their workplaces because they don't know the nuances of business communication. So I would say there is something that we should be really aware about when you are initiating a conversation in your workplace. So it should not be abrupt, blunt. For example, suppose I want to say a no to a person. It should not be a abrupt no. Instead, I should go more indirectly. So that's all about. I can say that is a one major trick that we should employ in our communication skills, to know where to go directly and where to express ideas indirectly. For example, we all know. Email etiquettes is something which is mostly sought after in your workplace. I can explain it with a very small example. So let us assume that you want to compose a mail. Okay, so you have to want to raise a complaint that your colleagues are unfamiliar with the software that is being used to deliver the task. So probably I can mail to my boss saying that I'm writing this email to share my concern that some of my team members have an unfamiliarity with the software on which we are working. So kindly look into this. So how does my email sounds? It sounds so abrupt or blunt. I would say that it is not really complete. So there are few things which we need to add on to make that email look more good. Probably you can come up with some solutions. You can give your suggestions. So let me make it very clear. So instead of the previous one you wrote, probably you can say, I'm writing this email to bring to your notice that some of my team members are struggling using the new software platform. So I strongly feel the need to introduce a training program. So probably if you are well aware with some agencies which provide training for the same, you can provide the link as well in the email. This would make your email look more competentous, that you're not only telling this is a way to get out of it, but you are also extending a solution, a possible solution, which would be a really great idea. So, yeah, definitely there are certain golden rules that we should discuss about composing an email. So, in this webinar, I would like to discuss more about this effective ways of composing an email in your workplace, which will make your emails look more good. So, I can call it as golden rules. And I have something to show. I would explain about it in detail. So please feel free to reserve your questions to the end of this presentation. We'll definitely discuss about it. You can drop your questions and concerns in the comment section so that we'll reach you. So shall we get started with this?
Sure, Suju.
Oh, great. So let me progress ahead with the topic. So just give me a moment till I grab it. Just a second.
So, my dear audience, if you have any questions, please drop a comment in the comment box so that the questions can be asked at the end of the show.
Okay. So let's get started. Yes. So our discussion is all about the golden rules to compose an email. So let me confirm. I suppose with this my screen is visible, right?
Yes, Suju, it is visible.
Great. So let's progress ahead. I was using this term golden rules to compose an email. Yes, this is in fact very important when you're composing an email. So let us discuss about that more ways to get your emails flawless. Let's go ahead. I would say email etiquettes is something that is really important. So avoiding any confusions or mistakes or misinterpretation will be really important. And most importantly, you have to improve on your efficiency. So we're all set to discuss about this email etiquettes. So it was just an official welcome. So let's progress ahead. I would like to start with the few components of composing an email, like you can see on my screen. An effective email always starts with a proper subject line. So if you're compromising on giving a good subject line, your email would look less professional. And obviously, there should be something called a greeting part based on to whom you're writing this email. For example, suppose you write an email to your superiors, your boss, probably you come up with a greeting which is more formal. But if you want to compose an email to somebody among your close circle, like your colleagues, your team members, the greeting would be a bit neutral. Or else, if you want to be a little more friendly with them, you can even go with a very informal way of greeting as well. Discuss about that. And obviously, an email should have an opening. See, business people usually doesn't have much time to read lengthy emails. So make sure that your opening is very abrupt and concise to the point, which gives the reader insight about what really you're going to discuss in this particular email. So it should be something very short, I can say. And then comes the main content, the body paragraphs, where you explain about the reasons of writing this email. And also, you can discuss a bit more about the main purpose for which you're writing, or else if it is an invitation, you can throw them an invitation with the date and the time. And next, definitely in an email there should be a friendly closure as well. You can just not abruptly end an email saying okay, thank you. That won't be fine. So there should be a friendly closure, which again adds to the effectiveness of composing an email. And a regards column, best regards, or probably yours sincerely. You generally don't write yours sincerely when it comes to an email, but some kind of a regard. So what are the best ways to express it, we'll discuss later. So I would say the components of an email would be subject line, ratings, opening, and main content, a friendly closure, and obviously a regard section. And then, yeah, so we should discuss more about it, how to compose an email effectively. So let me start with the scenario. Okay, as you all can see on my screen, the first scenario is, let us assume that you want to compose an email to your colleague and you want to invite him for a team dinner. Okay, so your team is participating in that particular dinner, and you're inviting a colleague to compose. You're writing an email to your colleague to to show up for this team dinner. That's what the scenario is. And I have this question to you. I would give you a few options, and you have to choose an appropriate subject line for this particular scenario. Okay. So, when you're phrasing an email, it is always good to use short noun phrases as your subject lines, not anything lengthy, not anything which sounds inappropriate to the context, not anything which sounds informal. So it is always good to go with short noun phrases. So I can show you some examples. So it would be good if you can choose one among the list, probably have it on your mind. We'll discuss which is correct later on. So my first subject line is invitation for the team dinner. Next one, to know if you're attending team dinner. The third one, team dinner invitation. Okay, so you've got three options: invitation for the team dinner, to know if you're attending team dinner invitation. So I assume that most of you, at least a significant proportion of you, might have picked the first option, invitation for the team dinner, as an appropriate subject line. But I do have a different opinion to this. Usually, when you write subject lines, it is good to avoid prepositions like for, on, in, at. So, those kind of prepositions or linking words could be avoided in your subject line. So, among the set of three options provided to us, the best one would be the last, team dinner invitation. So it sounds more formal, and also it sounds more concise and precise to the context. So the best choice would be to go with team dinner invitation. Okay, so we have fixed on the subject line. So what next? We have to choose an appropriate greeting, right? So let's move ahead. So when you choose a greeting, always understand the tone, understand to whom you're writing. So in this particular scenario, you're writing to your colleague to invite him for a team dinner. So this email is to somebody in your close circle, right? So understanding the tone, and or probably understanding your recipient is more important while you're expressing a greeting. So I would give you a scenario. Let us assume that the recipient of this particular email is James Peter, is my colleague. So if then I can probably start with Dear James, or else I can go with Dear Mr. Peter. Or the third option would be Hi James. Dear James, Dear Mr. Peter, Hi James. So I've got three different options on my list, and I have to choose an appropriate one. So let us think about each. Okay, let me start with the first one, Dear Mr. Peter. It sounds a bit formal. Okay, because you are adding a Mr. or Miss to their second name. It sounds formal. Your colleague is somebody who's in your close circle. Probably you would be well acquainted with them. Probably you have a friendly relationship with the other person. So it's obviously not required to be too formal in such a situation. So I don't think that the second option would be a best choice. Now the last one. Hi, James. It sounds a bit informal. So you can be a little friendly to your colleagues in a business environment. It's generally good to stick to something semi-formal, or I can call it as a neutral one. So the best choice in this particular scenario would be to go with dear James, because you're using dear and their first name. So it sounds like a neutral opening, and this will be the best choice. So we have done with subject line. We gave a greeting as well. Let's move ahead. Now we'll discuss about this opening and how to compose your body paragraphs as well. Again, understanding a proper language in terms of what tone that you should adopt is quite important. So let me give you a picture about this. So I've come with some opening, like where I introduce the purpose of writing this email. Obviously, you have to introduce the purpose in the first line. Otherwise, the person will be clueless. Okay, what he or she is talking about. If you're just giving a lengthy introduction, nobody will be interested to read that. So forget about the banal details. Be very precise. Come with some opening which straight away introduce you to the purpose of writing this email. And next, in the body para, what you need to do is just elaborate the details which you are putting across and ask their convenience. For example, in this particular scenario, you are writing an email to invite your colleague for a team dinner, right? So you have to ask if the time and the place where you fixed the dinner is convenient for the other person or not. They have to see the calendar. They have to see their calendar and see if any other meetings are scheduled on that particular day, on that particular time. So asking their convenience is also more important. We'll discuss about it. So I will give an idea about how you can introduce the purpose, elaborate your details, and ask their convenience. So let's see. I'm writing to invite you for a team dinner at Hotel Paragon on 22nd of this month for celebrating the success made in the last quarter. So in the first line, you're introducing the purpose. On reading this particular line, the person would be able to understand why you're writing this email, on at which place you've decided to meet for the dinner, and on what date. Let us look at the next line. I wanted to see if you were free at 8 p.m. 22nd. So you're fixing a time for the dinner, and you are asking the other person whether they would be convenient to attend the particular team dinner at this time. And lastly, it would be highly appreciated if you can confirm your arrival as early as possible. Obviously, before setting up a meeting or setting up some kind of a discussion, you should definitely ask their convenience and be assured if they are able to attend the meeting or not. So probably they can write a response email to this. Okay, so we are done with the opening and body paragraph where we introduce the purpose, and we also give an account about the details, and we also equally asked about their convenience. So let's progress ahead. And now I want to give you an idea about how you can give a friendly closure to this email. See, we are inviting him for a dinner. So let's see which would be an appropriate closure for this particular email. I will give you some options. You can choose the best. Yeah, thank you in advance. Thank you for your consideration. Please let me know if you have any questions. Please feel free to contact me if you need any more help. I look forward to hearing from you soon. So I've got 5 options in my list. Let's look at the first 2. You're thanking you in advance. We're thanking you for your consideration. So do you think that these 2 sentences or probably these 2 closures would help in this particular scenario? Definitely not, because it's not a situation where you have to thank the other person for something. So let's do away with this. These 2 options could be discarded. Next one, please let me know if you have any questions. It's less likely that the person would have any questions related to this scenario. Probably he or she may write an email discussing about their convenience to attend this particular team dinner. So we'll eliminate that option as well. Please feel free to contact me if you need any more help. So we don't think that the person would require any help as well. So the last option, I look forward to hearing from you. This would be the best choice. So do you have many options to conclude your mails? For example, if you have sought some help from the other person, you can go with the thank you closure. So if the other person is expected to seek for some clarification or confusion regarding what you are writing to, you can say them to ask questions if any, or feel free to contact you. But in this particular scenario, the last one would be the best choice. So we have done with the friendly closure part as well. And now let's see how our email looks on the whole. So we discussed about the components starting with the subject line. So subject line is here, team dinner invitation. And next about the greeting part, dear James, we went with a neutral way of opening this. Next, you introduce your purpose. So you mentioned that I'm writing to invite you for a team dinner at Hotel Paragon 22nd of this month for celebrating the success made in the last quarter. And next thing, I wanted to see if you were free at 8 p.m. on 22nd. So you're asking for their convenience. It would be highly appreciated if you can confirm your arrival as early as possible. So you're just asking them to give a response to your email as early as possible. And then you come up with a friendly closure. I look forward to hearing from you soon, and the regards part. So you can just go with the regards if it is neutral. Or if it is more formal, probably you can go with best regards if it is a little formal scenario. And even you can use just best if you want to be want to sound a bit informal, best, and then you can give your name. So always make sure that you choose an appropriate regards based on what is your choice. So here the person who wrote this email was Neil, so he gave his name at the end. This is how now it's look. So look for all the main components as subject line, a greeting, then you start opening, introducing your purpose, the venue and the date of this particular meeting. You ask about their convenience to meet at 8 p.m. So you're specifically mentioning about the time and asking their convenience. And you're also requesting them to respond to this email. And finally, you come up with a friendly closure and a regards with their name. Yes, so let's move ahead. Scenario 2. So let me give you more clarity about this. We'll discuss about these components one by one. And the second scenario is like you're writing a follow-up email to someone you met at a business conference so as to arrange a meeting. Okay, so usually as part of your business, you may have meetings with many representatives. You may attend business conference where you're likely to find your peers or representatives of delegates from other companies. So suppose that you met somebody during a business conference which was held somewhere, and now you're writing an email to the same person to arrange a possible meeting to discuss about your business development plans or something of that sort. So let's see the nature and tone and the structure of this particular email. So let us be very clear about this. So what tone that you should adopt here? So I think that you may tend to confuse it with a formal and neutral tone. Definitely, it should not be informal because you're not going to write to somebody in your close friend circle. So you cannot opt for an informal tone. As per me, the best choice would be to go with a neutral tone. So at least some of you might confuse this. So you may have a question. I'm writing to somebody who's outside my team circle. Then why should I go with a neutral tone? Rather, I should stick to something formal. But see, in business, you usually try to create relationships, build relationships between people. So since you have met this particular person during the last conference, you already have a good relationship, a rapport with this person. You might have had a friendly exchange. So now he is one among your acquaintances. So I think the best way to opt would be to stick to a neutral tone rather than being very formal in this situation, because you already met him, you already had a conversation with him, and he's one of your acquaintances. So, in this particular scenario, let us assume that the recipient of this particular email is Richard Murray. So, I just fix a name like that. And the sender, let us assume that it's Russell Stanley is writing this email to Richard Murray. So, let's see how it goes. See, in this particular email, you have to look for few things. Again, the components remain the same. You start with a very short subject line. Then you go with the greeting. So in this particular situation, like I mentioned earlier, it will be always good to go with a neutral tone. There should be an opening, a very straight opening, rather than just wavering around or being discursive. It is always good to go with a very specific and concise opening. Remind them about the previous meetings. For example, you already had met this person during a business conference. Just remind them in the introduction, otherwise they may not recognize you. So what kind of conversation that you had, just a hooking element that enables them to remember better about you. So you can remind them about the previous meeting that you had, like when and where you met them. And also ask for their convenience. Like I mentioned earlier, when you're fixing a meeting, you should definitely ask them about their convenience, whether it's convenient to attend the meeting or not. See, there again, you have to be very cautious about the tone that you use. Suppose I want to fix a meeting with him. I cannot simply say that I need you to attend a meeting on 20 seconds. I cannot go with a very rude or very straight way of expressing the same. I just want to ask his convenient very politely. So it's always good to go with an indirect tone which sounds more formal. For example, would you be able to attend a meeting? Or would it be all right if I fix a meeting on this date? So it's always good to go with a formal tone, an indirect tone. And definitely there should be a friendly closure as well. Okay, so we'll discuss about this as well. So let's progress ahead. Let's see how we can compose this particular email. So let's discuss about the ways to phrase this. Let's see if all the parameters are met or not. We start with the subject line. So here I would go with something which is more neutral. I don't want to make it very formal. So I just asked it as a question. Meeting on Tuesday. So it conveys that whether meeting on Tuesday is a feasible option for him or not. Now, I went with a very neutral greeting part. Dear Richard, I don't want to make it very formal. And then I started very casually because, like I mentioned earlier, you already had a meeting with this particular person earlier. So the first thing that you need to do is just remind him or her when and where you met, and probably a bit of what discussion that you had on the day. So let it be like this. Hope you remember me. We met during a conference in Mumbai the last week and exchanged your cards. So usually in a business meeting, you exchange business cards. This is considered very formal, and probably this is a friendly gesture as well. So the person started saying, "Now we met during a conference in Mumbai the last week and exchange your cards. I appreciate the time you spent to explain about your business expansion plan." So you're just giving a hint about what kind of a discussion you had with that particular person during the last meeting. And then definitely you have to introduce the purpose for which you're writing this email. You should not make your introduction sound too lengthy. So you can write in writing to ask if you would be available for a meetup on coming Tuesday in Noida, as in planning a visit to your city. So in the last line, you are introducing the purpose of writing this email. So you are writing to possibly arrange a meeting on this coming Tuesday in Noida, as this person who's writing this email is planning a visit to that city. So next, I'm going with a very indirect tone of expressing, would he be able to attend this? So would it be all right if we met for a coffee at Cafe Day, which is near to your office at 4? So you're giving them a time, a date, as well as the place where you would like to meet that particular person. But the tone you adopted was a bit indirect rather than saying, we can meet at this place, because it sounds so direct and unprofessional. So it's always good to go with an indirect way of asking. So probably you can express it as a question. You can use the models like would and could to make it sound more indirect. We'll discuss more about it. So my point was to make it indirect. So I went with a question: would it be all right if we met for a coffee at Cafe Day, which is near to your office at 4? I would appreciate if you confirm your availability on this date. I hope we would meet soon. So it's all about you're going to wind up this email, and before that you ask their convenience. I would appreciate if you could confirm your availability on this date. So you're requesting for a reply to this email, whether probably they are convenient on this particular time or not. Then you mentioned that I hope we would meet soon. It's a friendly closure. Looking forward to hearing from you, and best regards. And you gave your name. That's how it goes. So it's always good to go with a neutral tone when you're writing an email to one of your acquaintances, and becoming so formal in such situations may be inappropriate, and even you cannot be informal as well. So you have to understand when to go indirect. As I was repeatedly making use of this term indirect usages. So let me give you an idea about this. So in certain situations where you have to explain a bad news to someone, for example, because of a financial downturn, a company has decided to lay off its employees. So when you're conveying that matter to the particular person, it's definitely a bad news. You cannot directly say that, okay, you are fired, or we have decided to lay off you. There is a way of expressing it, because this is something likely to hurt the other person, or it's an unfavorable scenario for the other person. So when you're conveying a bad news, go indirectly. So probably you can say that, as you know, our company is going through a very bad phase. We haven't achieved our targets last quarter, so we have come to a decision to lay off some of our employees to, cope up this scenario. This is how you can make it sound more indirect. Probably you can stretch your statements and no probably lessen the impact created by the bad news to that particular person. This would be a great idea. And when you're conveying an unfavorable proposal, which is likely to be rejected by the other person, or which you feel is unlikely for the other person to accept it, and also when you're denying an invitation. For example, in the previous situation, you came across two different scenarios. In one scenario, a colleague was writing an email to another person in his team to invite him for a team dinner. And the second scenario, you're writing a follow-up email to arrange a meeting with somebody you met at a business conference. So when the other person reply to your email, it can be positive as well as it can be negative. Even we can put ourselves in such a situation where we have to decline an invitation uh, extended to us by somebody. So in such situations, go indirectly rather than saying, I can't attend this. Okay. And ask, when you're asking to postpone an event, for example, suppose you've got an inconvenience to attend a meeting on this particular day. So you're asking to postpone it because you feel that's quite important to attend this meeting and you really want your presence there. And when you're rejecting an offer, so when you're rejecting an offer for somebody, or when you're unsure about what would be the outcome, in all these situations, I assume that going with an indirect tone would make your language sound more formal, and this can less likely reduce the impact of the news that you're conveying. So go with an indirect tone if you feel the situation is unwelcoming for the other person. I hope this is clear. So let's progress. I can give you a few examples of direct situations and indirect situations to give you an idea about how this works. So look at the first sentence. Okay. Can I? And the other one is, would I be able to? So the first sentence was can I, and the other one was would I be able to. For example, can I get this done by today? It will be a direct way of asking, can I get this done by today? But if the same situation, I change it into, would I be able to get this done today, if that works for you? Now it sounds more indirect. So when you're using models, it's more preferred in a business conversation, because this can definitely help your language to sound indirect and more professional. Similarly, see the second situation. Could you, and would it be possible for you? So here's simply the length of statement gets a bit stretchy. For example, could you help me on this? Okay, it's a direct way of asking, could you help me? Would it be possible for you to help me on this? So you're simply stretching that question using would it be possible for you? Now it sounds more indirect. For example, the previous situation which I mentioned, suppose you want to postpone an event. Could you be able to postpone this event? Would be a rather direct way of asking that. But would it be possible for you to postpone this meeting to a different date so that I can also show up? Would be an indirect way of expressing it. So in such a unfavorable situation, it's always good to go with an indirect tone. Let us look at the third statement. Please let me know about it. Okay, please let me know about it. I can say that it's a bit neutral, but the best way to make it more indirect would be, would you be able to let me know about this? So when you're using would you be able to let me know about this, it becomes a bit stretched and it sounds indirect as well. Now, I would like to give an idea about the power of will and how it transforms when you're using may or might. Suppose you have a meeting with your teammates, and you were supposed to show up for the meeting at 6. Because of some reasons, something urgent has come up and you're running late for the meeting. So you simply drop a text saying, I will be late, or it sounds a bit inappropriate. Instead, probably you can say, I may be late, or I might be late because of so and so reasons. So may or might in your speech would act as softeners, which can make your speech look more indirect and appropriate to the context. So make sure that you're correctly using the softeners in your language to make it more effective. So an indirect tone is always favorable in formal scenarios, but definitely we don't want to be too formal with your teammates, so you can choose it wisely. Now, let me explain this clearly with a scenario. Yeah, so let us assume this. In the previous scenario that we face, it was like a person was inviting the other one to have a meeting on a particular day. Okay, he is a person who's one of your acquaintances met during a business conference. So this was a previous scenario. Now suppose Richard Morey, to whom this email was written, has some other assignments on that day and is unable to meet Pressel on Tuesday at 4 p.m. because of some reasons. So, reason which he would like to suggest is a product launch is scheduled on that day. So, it's declining an invitation that you got to attend a meeting. So, is it a favorable or unfavorable situation? It's definitely an unfavorable situation, right? So, we have to go with an indirect tone rather than saying, sorry, I can't. So we'll discuss about it. So the appropriate tone would be go with a neutral stand and an indirect way of approach. So neutral because you know the person pretty well because you already had some discussion with him during a business conference. So he's one of your acquaintances. It's good to have a neutral tone rather than being too formal. And since the content that you need to express is a bit unwelcoming, so you can stick to an indirect tone. Let's see. So let's look at the components before we phrase it. Obviously, we start with the subject line. Probably in this particular situation, since you are writing this email as a response to the previous email, it's good to start with re-invitation, would be a best subject line. And then greetings, formal, not a formal, but here in this particular situation, you would go with the neutral greeting part and then thanking them for the email. Obviously, when a person is spending some time phrasing the email for you, say for any purpose, when you're responding to that email, make sure you thank them. So this is something that shows your politeness. So make sure you don't compromise in this part. And once after thanking them for this email, express if you're accepting it or denying the invitation. Like the previous situations, it was all about invitation for a meeting, whether you would be able to attend this meeting or you won't be. So accept or deny, that comes next. But if you're denying the meeting, just don't make it sound blunt. For example, I'm afraid I can't attend the meeting on that day. So you cannot pause there, because you should definitely give a reason why you are not accepting this. Because you always look forward for a meeting with him, probably in some future date. You don't want to spoil relationship between people. So it is always good to state the reason why you're denying this invitation if you're not able to attend. And the best or more polite way would be to request another meetup if possible. So ask for the other person's convenience if they would be able to meet you on some other day. And a friendly closure, obviously, and regards part. That's how the component goes. Let's see how it looks in an email. So let's phrase it. We start with the subject. Sorry, we start with yeah. Obviously, the subject is auto generated, so you have something called re-invitation as your subject line, and then you go with the greetings part, dear Russell. So it sounds like a bit neutral way of opening, I can say. Thank you for your email. Okay, so you're thanking them. The first part. I'm afraid I'm not available on Tuesday as the product launch of the company is scheduled on the day at Wilfred Hall. So you're stating that you won't be able to attend that meeting. But you didn't say that I can't attend, but you went rather indirectly saying, I'm afraid I'm not able to. So this shows an indirect way of approach when you are declining the invitation. And you didn't stop there. You also gave a reason why you're not able to attend. So the new product launch of your company is scheduled on the day at Wilfred Hall. So you're clearly giving them a reason why you're unable to attend this particular discussion. And then the next part, I was wondering if we could meet on Wednesday the same time if you would be here. So the person who's writing this email is thinking about the possibility of arranging another meeting on a different day, on Wednesday, the same time, if he or she is available. So here they're writing to Russell, so he wants to know if Russell is available on this day to have a meeting. So the way he expresses was rather indirect. I was wondering if we could meet on Wednesday at the same time, if you would be here. Instead of saying we can meet on Wednesday, would be just a direct way of expressing it. So, and then he also mentioned about the venue. We'll meet at the cafe as you mentioned. So, again, the same place on a different date. It would be great if you could let me know if this time works for you. So, they're asking for their convenience, whether Russell is able to be there at this place on the time proposed earlier, on the same place, uh, if that works for him or not. Again, we went with the indirect tone. It would be great if you could let me know. Instead of writing, please let me know, you're trying to make it more indirect. So it would be great if you could let me know if this time works for you. And then looking forward to hearing from you, obviously, a friendly closure. And then you give the regards part the name as well. That's how it goes. Now, yeah, till now we were discussing more about instances where you can have a neutral tone, and I definitely mentioned that it's not a great idea to go with an informal tone in business sphere. So let's talk about until and unless, or provided, until and unless a person is somebody in your close circle at your workplace, or even if you have a good rapport with your team members, you can go with an informal tone. That won't be definitely a problem. That won't be a problem. So I would like to give you an idea about certain instances where you can go formal. For example, suppose you're writing to the representative of another company. Okay, so you're writing an email regarding some official matters. So it's less likely that you might have met the other person. So he or she may not be your acquaintances. So in such situations, it is good to, it's wise to adopt a formal tone in your writing. When you're writing to your superiors, obviously you don't want to show a callow attitude when you're writing to your superiors, so go with a formal tone. So writing to any officials availing in service, for example, it can be the head of a public authority or somebody of that sort. You're writing to someone to avail a service, it can be a public authority. So in such situations you can adopt a formal tone. And extending offer letters to the new recruitees. Yeah, so you're welcoming the new person on board. It's definitely you will work with them. It needs to be a formal welcome, so adopt a formal tone. And lastly, I can say when you send an email on behalf of your company, so you definitely have to adopt a formal tone in such situations. Now, yeah, let me give you an idea about certain scenarios where you can go formal within your organization as well. So let me explain it. Let us suppose this is a company and you have two different departments. The one is an HR department, the other finance department. So for time being, I'm taking these two departments. And suppose you want to write an email. Okay. So the email communication, the first email communication happens between parties within a department. And the next email communication happens between a party in first department with a party in the next department. So there is a name that you give for such, I can say such emails. The first scenario, when you're writing an email within somebody in your department, it's called an intra-departmental emails. And the second one, when you're writing an email to one from your department to one from another department, it's more like a cross-departmental email. So we'll discuss about that. So we should definitely know about the difference between these two and the tone that you need to adopt. So we'll start with this intra-departmental emails. So opening should be a mostly you can adopt a neutral tone, or like I mentioned, if you want to be very informal with your teammates because you already have a good rapport with them. So hi everyone, or addressing them generally as a team would be okay. So you can adopt a neutral or an informal tone in such situations based on whom you're writing. And if you want to create somebody in the loop or somebody about the information that you're conveying through an email, make sure you keep a CC for them. So include CC if you want to keep anyone in this loop. And third, in your body paragraphs as well, go with a neutral tone. It's good to adopt neutral tone rather than becoming too casual, and provide clear deadlines. For example, suppose you want to get a report on time, or probably you want to get any other data. So make sure you give clear deadlines so as to avoid further confusions. And when it comes to cross-departmental email, the scenario slightly changes because you are writing from one department to other. So it's mostly tend to be like a it tend to have a formal tone. So your opening can be formal, even the tone that you adopt to write the in-depth email can be a bit more formal. And include CC to your reporting managers or other seniors whom you think should be aware of some kind of communication that happens between the departments. So include CC and then introduce yourself. It's less likely that a person from some other department is know you personally, or know who you are, or in which department that you're working. So make sure you introduce yourself. So you can introduce yourself. It's not necessary that you have to introduce your name, because already in email the name of the center is already there, so you don't have to include that. But you can definitely include in which department that you're working, or probably what is your job, what is your designation, what is your job profile. That's how it is. There is no need to introduce yourself by your name, but go for an introduction in terms of from which department that you come from, and probably your job designation as well. And start with the purpose. Like I mentioned earlier, people don't have time to read a lengthy email. So make sure you start with the purpose, use an indirect language rather than going very directly. And yeah, so we have an idea about what is intra-departmental and what is a cross-departmental email. So let me explain with few situations that would help you to understand better. So scenario 4. So you write an email to one of your colleagues asking him to make some necessary arrangements prior to a team meeting. So let's take a while to think whether this is an intra-departmental or a cross-departmental email. See, you're writing an email to your colleague, so who's somebody in your team, to make some arrangements prior to a team meeting. So it happens within your department, not outside. So it's definitely an intra-departmental email. So let us assume that the recipient here is Eric and sender is Zubin. So the type of email is, like we already discussed, it is an intra-departmental email. So let us look at the scenario once again. You're writing to make some arrangements prior to a team meeting. So the tone that you can adopt would be neutral. Let's go ahead and phrase it. You start with a subject line. So here I went for a subject line which is very short and precise. So meeting arrangements. Then I started with the greeting part, dear Eric. I'm writing regarding few arrangements to be made prior to the meeting, which is planned on coming Tuesday. So you're introducing the purpose, okay, why you're writing this, and the purpose is there in the first line. I assume that 10 people are joining us for the meeting, so you're giving a clarity to him about the number of attendees. Make sure coffee is ordered for everyone in the group, if possible, some snacks as well. So you just want to make sure that everyone in the group gets some sort of refreshments in the middle of the meeting so as to keep them entertained. So you're asking your teammate to arrange some coffee or snacks if possible. I would like to, I would talk to the manager to allot the conference room for the discussion. So you may ensure that the data projector is not booked by anyone else. So you're giving him a clarity about what is your expectation, like what do you expect him to do prior to the meeting. So he needs to arrange few things, arrange some refreshments for the participants, and you have no interested yourself with the responsibility of arranging the conference room, but he need to make sure that the data projector is working, and you are requesting for a reply, and you add to it saying it would be appreciable if you can take notes during the discussion. So probably you suggest him to take the minutes of the meeting. Minutes is what the report that you take during the meeting, first to get an idea about what kind of sort discussions happen there and what is the action plan, and what is the outcome of that particular meeting. So you mentioned about that expectation as well, and then please let me know if there arises any difficulty to get it done. So you're adopting a neutral stand here rather than going very indirectly. Since this is one among your teammates, you stick to a neutral tone in expressing it. And lastly, the regards part, and you wind up the email. That's how it goes. So this is more like a intra-departmental email where you write to one of your colleagues and making sure that your language sounds a bit neutral and indirect. Scenario 5. So let's think about a cross-departmental email now. An HR writing an email to the finance department to seek the qualification criteria of candidates to fill in a vacancy in the finance department. So let us assume that some kind of a worse scenario happened. So you are an HR working with some company, and you're writing a mail to the finance department to seek some qualification criteria for the candidates to fill in the vacancy in the finance department. Then how it goes. So let's see. So the recipient in this discussion is Samuel James, and the sender is Russell Stanley. I would say the type of email that you can adopt here would be a cross-departmental email, and you have to adopt a formal tone as well. So let's see how it goes. Subject, you mentioned about the new recruitees qualifications. You start with the subject. You mentioned about the greetings part. Then you said that I'm Russell Stanley from HR department and writing in regard to a recruitment process, which is set to begin on Monday to fill in the vacancy of an accountant in your department. So I would like to know about the desired qualification criteria, like any degrees or certificates. Then I asked about his updates regarding the same. It would be appreciable if you could update this. And thank you. That's how you end with best regards. So it sounds like a cross-departmental email now. And so you have to avoid certain things in your email. Definitely you have to do this. Never over-dump details. Never look your email look clumsy. Always go for a paragraph separation. Avoid using abbreviations, for example, by the way, for your information, like what I've displayed on the slide. It won't be a great idea. And avoid informal expressions like wow, cheers. Definitely not a good go. Overuse of phrasal verbs and idioms is less likely to happen in the email, so avoid that as well. And avoid redactions like gonna do this, wanna do this. It's not really formal. So this is about how you phrase an email. Here are the golden rules. Never forget the components, the subject line, the greetings, the body part, and everything. And think who is the recipient. Choose an appropriate tone. Keep it concise. Use polite language. Write and check. Yeah. So that's it. Here we go. So if you can work on these areas, definitely you would ace become, ace the process of writing a good email, and that's how it works. So that's about it with Yusri. I hope this was effective.
Yes, that was a great presentation, Suju. So I believe our audience have few questions to ask to you. So I think they are more curious to know more about this topic. So I'm going to ask those questions on their behalf. So the first question is proposed by Nalina Kumar. So will it be the same if giving a complaint mail? So this was the question.
Okay. Yes, definitely. So we should definitely discuss about this particular part. When you're giving a complaint email, see, like I mentioned earlier, in such a situation, when you're writing a complaint email, it tends to be a bit more formal in tone. But the components remain the same. I can say you should start with a proper subject line. You should start with the greetings part, and then you should start with your purpose. Make it very short, clear to the point, and express clearly what is your complaint, and explain clearly what is your complaint. Probably, like I mentioned earlier in the first scenario, when you're complaining something, it should not be rather blunt or abrupt, saying, "Okay, I'm writing this email to complain about so and so." It sounds very rude. So, if you have possible solutions to that you see to overcome this particular situation, you can also note it down in your email so that your boss or your superior, whoever it is, would feel, that the email is more competitive. So you're also providing a clear-cut guideline about how to solve this. So this is what I would like to add. The components remains the same, but make sure that you adopt a formal tone.
Great. So the next question is while writing an email, is it good to use complex vocabulary for better proficiency, or is it good to use simple words to convey the message?
Okay. So I don't think that writing too complex sentences is the best idea in writing email, because whatever you write, it is not good. That when you put it too verbose, when you stretch it out, people really find it uninteresting to read your email, or probably the content which you need to convey through your email would look unclear for the other person who's reading it. So it is always good to make it very short and precise to the context rather than coming up with something too verbose.
All right. So the next question we have is should we include paragraph spacing on composing an email?
Definitely, we should, because without paragraph spacing, it will look more crowded, I can say. So your ideas or the components would look less explicit. If you're just combining the purpose of writing the reasons and you just keep on elaborating about it without giving a clarity, it won't be a great idea. So make sure that there is a proper spacing followed. So after opening, you can keep a spacing and then move ahead with the rest. That will be a great idea.
Great. The next question is can I use humor or colloquialism when writing to a close colleague?
I think it's more a personal choice, like I mentioned earlier. If you don't want to be quite callow with others in your group, or if you just want to maintain the professionalism, it's generally recommended to avoid any emojis or humors or colloquialism in your email. But like I mentioned, if you have a good rapport with the person, if you feel that some kind of humor, colloquialism with that person would be fine because he's one among your close aides, and you can definitely go with it. It's not a problem.
Okay, the next question is, how should I introduce myself through an email to another party?
Yes. So when you introduce yourself through an email to another party, I think I've been did the same during our discussion as well. It's not necessary that you have to mention your name, because there is nothing about no, there is no point in mentioning your name, because it's already there. The recipient would be able to know that who have sent that email. So there is no need to introduce your name, but introduce in which department you're working or what is your job designation. And so probably they can get a better clarity about the purpose of this email.
Okay, so can I send a proposal through an email?
So, proposal, obviously, in business, perspective, we generally make negotiations, proposals, and deal with people. But I would say that writing a lengthy email stating what all things are included in the proposal and what you offer won't be a great idea, because nobody would like to read a lengthy email. So, the best part would be, if you want to include any proposal to your email, bring it as an attachment. So you can attach a copy of the proposal, probably as a Word document or PDF, whatever you prefer to. That would be a great idea. And make sure that the email is very short.
Great, Suju. So the next question is, why is all caps bad? When can we use all caps?
All caps are definitely bad, because when you're writing an email in all capital letters, the reader would find it very difficult to read and understand it. You can simply experiment it. Just type something all in capital letters. Even we find it inappropriate when you're phrasing a resume as well. So make sure you avoid caps. And I mean, not completely avoids, but if you want to highlight anything, if you want to create any kind of, if you want to emphasis on something, mm, uh, it would be good if you can include some capital letters for certain abbreviated forms, but not everything. So make sure that you use caps, but not so prominently. So writing everything in caps is a bad idea.
All right, so I think that's about the questions. So thank you so much for answering, Suju. Yeah, so we are at the end.
Thank you, Divyasri.
So it was a great privilege and a pleasure to be your interlocutor in this webinar. Well, I'm sure today's webinar must have helped our audience to gain more knowledge about emailing. So the talk was really an eye opener. Thank you so much for this wonderful session, Mrs. Suju. And I'm also hoping to see you soon in the next session with another exuberant topic. And I also sincerely extend my gratitude to each and everyone who participated in this webinar and making it a more interactive one. All the participants can avail a discount on this coupon code, which is displayed on the screen, if you would like to join Inspira for further assistance. So, see you all in the next session. Thank you so much. Have a flabbergasting week.
Thank you.
Inspire.